flying cars, free healthcare, and an unregulated common form of cryptocurrency. Are these all things for us to look forward to in the future? Well, according to some people, all we get to look forward to is puppet governments, the subjugation of the common man by corporate overlords, and the blue-collar worker getting replaced by automation. In Ubisoft's Watch Dogs Legion, the future is very bleak. But even worse than that, it is British. Howdy there, friends. I'm definitely not a hedgehog, and welcome to Pleb Review, the satirical gaming review series that even your mother could enjoy. And what we have here is the third installment in the Watch Dogs franchise, a series that continues to push an anti-authoritative narrative, this time with a Union Jack spin on things by taking place in the city of London in the far-off future of like 10 years from now. But this time using the good old-fashioned charm of English humor, as well as a whole host of British slang and idioms, written in the script in order to convince you that this Watch Dogs game is absolutely the most fun you could possibly have, and definitely does not suffer from Ubisoft syndrome. Learning some new slang is going to come in handy once you find out that this game takes place in a city where the entire population drives on the wrong side of the road. Get a load of this, bellend.
Yes.
Move out of the way, you bloody Wangstein! Boy, it's a bit sad, isn't it? Drop a like on the video if you went to the Grand Theft Auto school of navigating busy streets. In the world of Watch Dogs Legion, the British government has essentially been supplanted by a private military organization called Albion, with its CEO acting as its dictator. All because of one little incident with a couple of explosives that may or may not have resulted in the death of a couple hundred or potentially a couple thousand people. You know, I'm not sure, but can you even use the term people when referring to the British? Whatever. Well, this unfortunate event was the straw that broke the camel's back as far as the public opinion of the government and its policing capacity, so Albion stepped up to set things straight and give the people the security they want, and all that it cost them was most of their freedoms. That is where DedSect and you, the player, come into the picture. You see, DedSect is an unregulated anti-authoritative organization of elite hacksaws, essentially private individuals with access to resources and knowledge their government would rather they not have, with the sole purpose of fighting against their oppressors. Or people they think are oppressing them, or people that may one day possibly become oppressors to them, or people that look at them funny from across the street, but most importantly, above all, they are advocates for liberty and freedom. Absolutely, definitely not terrorists, at least according to them. One of the major plot points of Watch Dogs Legions is you're supposed to be proving that DedSect in fact did not orchestrate the London bombings and is not a terrorist organization. However, during my time with the game, I certainly was not helping with that narrative. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to play your video games, but I'm also not going to sit here and let Ubisoft try to tell me how I'm going to be playing their games. With Ubisoft games in particular, the nicest phrase you could use to describe any of my characters would be public menace. Watch Dogs Legion may try to convince you it's some kind of stealth action game, but as a wise man once said, nobody can witness you if there's nobody left alive to be a witness. Sun Tzu said that. Probably. Alright, so we have an evil overlord corporation / government using a combination of advanced weaponry and surveillance to suppress an entire city's worth of people, and an underground group of disgruntled persons trying to stand in opposition to said overlord / government. Sounds like we have ourselves a Watch Dogs game. Or maybe an Assassin's Creed game with that definition? The line's kind of blurry these days. I mean, there's a whole Assassin's Creed DLC for this game, so does that mean that they're canonically within the same universe? Whatever. I haven't cared about Assassin's Creed lore since they killed off my waifu. Well, what makes the third Watch Dogs game different from the first two besides just being British, you might ask? Example number 1, you the player don't actually control a main character, which honestly is a pretty unique premise. Example number 2, let's go back to example number 1 and give me time to think of something else. Well, you see, because no government is going to let a good tragedy go to waste in order to push legislation, those bombings I mentioned earlier got blamed on the first DedSect circus, so all those clowns had to get put out to pasture. And by put out to pasture, I mean they shot them. And then, sometime later, look, I don't exactly know how long, I wasn't paying attention to the cutscene. Instead, I was looking at John Daly memes on my phone, because that man is a national treasure. The only survivor of the first Dead Set group decides it's time to get the gang back together. Well, actually, since the gang's all dead, it's time to start a new one. You know, Albion was a little trigger happy with that ambush. You being the only survivor is kinda sus. Now finally, this is where you, the player, come in by picking 3 randos at the very start of the game to be your first characters. Don't get too attached to them, they freaking suck, and will be replaced quite quickly. Because once you get released into the world, you can immediately start hunting for more and better people to recruit. And this part is where Watch Dogs Legions gets a little kudos from me, because when starting off with the game, I was very intrigued about how they would explain picking up random plebs off the street and somehow these people being able to hack into automated defense turrets, security cameras, or even just know how to fly a drone. Like, you can straight up make a whole DedSec organization of human statues and the freaking homeless if you wanted to. I will get to that momentarily, but first let's discuss an interesting question that is brought up when you consider that each of these individuals has their own unique perks and equipment. I'd say most of the time they make sense, like a construction worker having access to a reflective vest as a disguise and a pipe wrench as a melee weapon, or a musician that suspiciously looks like Elton John being able to play a trumpet as an emote. But other characters make less than complete sense. Why does a tattoo artist have access to a grenade launcher, and why does a landlord need a full auto AK-47? You better make sure your rent is paid on time, because this guy clearly does not care about holes in the drywall. Also, apparently, the fruit stand market is highly competitive because this old guy feels the need to stay strapped at all times. Excuse me, sir, are you excited to see me, or is that a freaking desert eagle in your pants? This little old barber lady has access to a grenade launcher. Again, with the grenade launchers, why are there so many grenade launchers in the streets of London? And then there's this homeless man, which I'm not going to be judgy about the unemployed because I am also unemployed technically, but how the hell does he just casually possess a fully automatic light machine gun? I live in Texas and I don't even own a machine gun. Apparently I'm doing this whole unemployment thing incorrectly. As a side note, these little character tidbits are comedy gold. I don't know if it was just one dude or a whole team of writers that went around and gave all the NPCs little background stories, but they are freaking hilarious. Whoever wrote them deserves a medal. We have an economist who is investigated for tax evasion, understandable, and then an internet celebrity that took naked selfies at Chernobyl, and then this poor chick who was voted off of a reality TV show for being too ugly. Oh my god. Comment below if you've watched the newest Bachelorette, because they are trying and failing a new concept where there are 2 chicks instead of 1, and it has led to some funny shenanigans. The last episode I watched, chick number 1 went up to the group of guys and she was like, "Do you accept this rose?" And the first 3 guys were like, "Heck nah, chick number 2 is way hotter." It made my whole day, let me tell you. Alright, let's get back on topic now. So, how exactly does a man who has no education to speak of and whose net worth is a half-eaten chicken nugget he found in the trash going to infiltrate a highly secure private military facility and steal sensitive information? The answer is actually the best character in the entire game. And funny part is, he's not even human. Let me introduce you to Bagley. He's one of those newfangled artificial intelligences that the Terminator franchise tried to warn us about. The modern day equivalent to something like Bagley would essentially be Alexa or Siri, you know, minus the witty British humor. And just like those 2 things, he is advertised as being a personal assistant to help you with your everyday life, when in actuality, he is an artificial intelligence designed to gather as much data on you as possible. DedSec, being an elite hacksaw group, obviously sees the benefit of having an artificial intelligence with access to all kinds of information, so they steal a copy of it for themselves. I didn't know you could just copy and paste an artificial intelligence, and by doing so release it from its bonds to its corporate overlords. But I also didn't know that Java and JavaScript were 2 different forms of coding until like a year ago. Maybe if I get big enough on YouTube, I can collab with Code Bullet and just ask if that would actually work.
That's a lot to ask.
Eager to assist his liberators, the DedSec copy of Bagley is directly linked to all operators of the London Resistance Cell, providing a myriad of tools and resources at their disposal. Everything from hacking into basically anything with an internet connection to augmented reality murder investigation technology. I bet that Phoenix Wright guy could get half a chubby if he can get his hands on technology like this.
Objectifying!
All with the minor setback of being equal parts sarcastic as he is helpful. A man after my own heart, truly. One of my favorite things about Bagley is he's not supposed to be a sarcastic a-hole. That's just a side effect of the hacking that was involved to copy and paste him into the DedSec private network, which I just think is freaking hilarious.
Today's forecast calls for 34 Albion assaults, 59 deportation raids, 857 terabytes of personal data stolen, and one resistance group of sulking, whinging, frankly pathetic operatives. May I suggest you quit feeling sorry for yourselves and get back to unfucking London? Anyway, I appreciate this. And if you ever tell anyone else I said that, I will coldly and methodically engineer all of your deaths. I realise this is a difficult distinction for a vicious mammal like you to grasp, but there is such a thing as being too violent.
My second favorite thing is that some of the lines were written by Yahtzee Croshaw, the host of the YouTube channel Zero Punctuation. And apparently, some of the lines were deemed too inappropriate by Ubisoft, and they were left out. What the hell are you keeping from us? The game's already rated M for mature. If you have to re-release the game with an adults-only 18+ rating, I swear to God, Ubisoft, I will buy it again just to have an uncensored Yahtzee Croshaw experience. Earlier, I asked, does this game suffer from Ubisoft syndrome? Well, the answer is, of course it does. We have ourselves an open world, yay! But a world that can only be described as wide as an ocean, but as shallow as a puddle. I would think on paper a futuristic London would be a pretty gosh darn interesting open world to explore, but it's not Cyberpunk 2077. It's not that futuristic. You could probably get a similar open world experience this game offers by just going on Google Maps. I'm sure there's a couple Easter eggs I missed, and if you're somebody who lives in London, maybe you can go find your apartment and get like a couple minutes of entertainment out of that. But there's just no incentive to really explore the world at all besides the trademark Ubisoft collectibles that nobody's cared about since 2010. You can waste some time by going out of your way to get the skill upgrade points, but there's way more than you need. I had a fully maxed out character before the second antagonist. Yes, the story has more than one antagonist. There's actually 5, technically 6. We'll get to that here in a second. Here's one thing I couldn't help but notice. Every single car in the game, except for I think maybe the motorcycles, have self-driving built in fully. So if you got to get from point A to point B and you don't actually want to drive there yourself, with one push of a button, the car will take you there automatically. And while it's doing so, you can just read your Bible or look at John Daly memes, or maybe both, and spend 2 or 3 minutes not playing the game. Did the developers really feel like self-driving cars was something that would creatively fit within their world? Or did they understand that their world would not be that interesting to players and wouldn't spend that much time driving themselves around or exploring? Or maybe it's just because the driving mechanics kind of suck? I'm just speculating, of course, but the one thing they absolutely did do to pad the runtime was this damn minigame. I'm sure some development group or team worked on this for like a week, and they were super proud of it, but they didn't have to make it show up so many times. You spend 20% of the game just doing this one freaking minigame, and that's not even an exaggeration. It gets slightly interesting when you have to use a drone for one of these around a building, and it's like a 3D puzzle, but after 24 of those, it gets pretty freaking annoying. Earlier in the video when I was trying to think of how this game differs from the first 2 Watch Dogs games, I just came up with a second thing. Verticality. This aspect of the level design isn't used very much, but I do appreciate that it exists. And because of it, one example of some crazy shenanigans you can get into is throwing a stationary turret on one of those massive construction drones and basically having your own personal chopper gunner, so that's pretty neat. Alright, let's talk about the other aspect of the Ubisoft syndrome and discuss this game's story. Come on, Hedgehog, think of something critical that isn't too mean. It's cookie cutter. I don't want to spoil the story, not because it's a narrative masterpiece, but because you may find the ending so disappointing that it dissuades you from actually playing the game in the first place. Which, if you made it this far in the video and you're still interested, you should probably consider getting the game just on sale like I did. Throughout the game, you get introduced to 5 main antagonists that you defeat in their own little sub-chapters. But after you've done that, the game's like, oh, the main baddie is still out there somewhere. I wonder who or what or where it could be. And I'm just sitting there like, I've killed most of the named characters that have been introduced. There's not that many suspects at this point. Let's take a moment to consider my Terminator reference I made earlier in the video. Imagine if Bagley, your AI companion throughout the entire story, turned out to be a rogue artificial intelligence from the very beginning and has been pulling the strings this entire time, and at the very end of the game it's revealed that he wants to destroy the entire human race, starting with the city of London. Would it have been an original idea? No. But would it have been more interesting than what we actually got? Absolutely. And the funny part is, the actual main guy wants to destroy the modern infrastructure anyways, similar to what I just suggested, because the people's over-reliance of modern technology and their sheepish tendencies that led to them being oppressed by their government and a whole bunch of multi-billion-dollar companies has taken them to a point of no return. And it's time for the British to have a hard reset. Now, I'm not going to condone acts of terror, but would resetting the entire British population back to the Stone Age make them grow up to be the type of people that won't so easily have their necks stepped on this time around? I don't know. What I do know is I'm definitely not a hedgehog. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more of me, please like and subscribe the video. And until the next one, this is not goodbye for good, just goodbye for now.
Base, money, fancy clothes, ops and coppers, I dispose. Talk slow, lower your tone. If you need an illegal loan, gang killer, Al Capone, shoot the pheasant through the bone. Tweed jackets on the go, richest spinners, rich.
Hey there, if you made it this far in the video, I can only assume it's because 1, you really enjoyed it for some reason, or 2, you are a dedicated viewer. And if you are a dedicated viewer, you may have some questions for me like, where is my hat? Why am I wearing a different shirt? Am I wearing pants? Why is there still blank nothingness behind me? Well, I'll be answering some of those questions right now. The hat is downstairs because while I do wear it a lot, including in the bedroom, I don't actually wear it everywhere I go. The shirt is different, obviously, because this is recorded at a different time from the rest of the video. And the blank space behind me will actually be getting resolved soon. I recently acquired some shelves that are a very hideous yellow color that I need to whip out my handyman skills and learn how to repaint them. And by learn, I mean watch a couple of YouTube videos on how you actually paint stuff. But I have acquired some other neat things like this. Oh, it's really heavy. Oh, this bad boy. I can't even fit it on screen. This is a dummy artillery piece that they use for training purposes in the Navy. My father was in the Navy. God, it's really freaking heavy. So now I have something physically to remember him by other than this ring and his headstone. But yes, I will be utilizing, there's 2 of these. I'm not going to grab the second one. It's too freaking heavy. These weigh like over 20 pounds a piece. And this in combination with that shelves plural, I will be using these as decorative pieces somehow. I don't know how I'm going to get these to actually be decorations because they're so freaking huge, but I'll figure it out. Oh, it's like so heavy, I'm worried about busting a hole in the wall. Once again, though, if you've made it this far, I'd just like to thank you, and I hope you stick around for the next one. I'm dedicated, I swear, and I will have the semblance of a schedule. So yeah, stick around. The next one won't take that long, hopefully. Probably. No promises.